Recording in progress.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome all those in the chamber this morning, as well as those online. This is the Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 Board of Commissioners meeting. We welcome you here. I'm Commissioner Gage Farr. I'll be conducting this morning. With me to my left is Commissioner Sharon Bolos, and to my right, Commissioner Jim Harvey. We're going to start this meeting this morning with the Pledge of Allegiance given by Chad Meyerhofer. Chad's here. Then we will do an invocation by Craig Brandt, and our thought of today will be given by Commissioner Bolos.
Liberty and justice for all. Our Father in heaven, we thank Thee for this beautiful sunny morning. We're grateful for the opportunity to gather in this commission meeting in Weber County and ask that Thy Spirit will attend with us, that we will make decisions that are sound and wise for the wonderful citizens of this county. We thank Thee for the opportunities we have to serve, not just in these capacities, but to our neighbors around us, and pray that we can all come together in a way that lifts and unites, and that will make our homes a better place. We pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Commissioner Bolos.
Okay, my thought of the day comes from a presentation called Passionomics, the scientific evidence that caring makes a difference. And it is done by a man named Stephen Tresiak. One of my friends attended this training and shared this quote with me. And resilience is one of the things that I've always tried to teach my children. Just handle what comes at you and move on and, be a problem solver, right? Be resilient. And the quote that she shared with me was, "The key to resilience is relationships." And I thought, isn't that true? We can't just be resilient on our own. It takes people around us to be able to be resilient. And so the more relationships we foster, I think the better we are at being resilient. So the key to resilience is relationships.
Great thought.
Yeah.
I think we live that every day, one form or the other. Appreciate that thought. Thank you. Let's now go to our next agenda item, which is public comments. Now is your time to come before the commission. Take up to 3 minutes if you wish and talk about anything that relates to the agenda. Now is your time. Anyone online? Christy Shelley? Okay, we have our own mayor. Honorable from Washington Terrace. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for giving me a couple minutes this morning. Mark Allen, Mayor of Washington Terrace City. Happy to be here. And today I'm here for a very special reason. I'd like to give a huge thank you, excuse me, to our ramp board. I see a few of them here this morning. Washington Terrace received a rather substantial ramp grant this year to finish finish a phase 2 of a project that we have going. And I'd just like to thank the ramp board for all their hard work. Shelley, from what I understand, kind of keeps that together, correct? And appreciate the commissioners for their support. I know one thing we need to do is we need to get that back on the ballot in 2024. So we're all here to help and get that back. Let me just give you a little bit. Washington Terrace City, small community, 2 square miles, a little over 9,000 people. Over 51% of those residents are low to moderate income. And we could not, as a community, be able to do the recreation projects, the park projects, restrooms, things like that, without the ramp grants. Our community could not do that. I promise residents I will not raise taxes to help in the parks because they can't afford it. So ramp is our saving grace. And so, again, thank you, ramp, and commissioners for your support of ramp. And I encourage you to approve those ramp projects that you have in front of you today. So, Yeah.
Thank you for that. Don't, I'm assuming
Please.
we might have some questions for the Honorable Mayor Allen, so.
Do I have to beg?
No, you don't have to take them. Mayor, thank you for being here. Washington Terrace, you know, you guys do a great job out there. It is a small city, but you make a huge impact on Weber County, and with WACOG and Central Weber that you sit on, we appreciate all your efforts in the county. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, please identify yourself.
Daniel Abraham Bartson. Excellent prayer, by the way. And the new commissioner on the board, definitely the resiliency is very important. And obviously, community relationships, community, and I also think, you know, just a non-vindictive government. I was fortunate enough to visit Portland at the first of the year, and you know, we know the strong civil unrest that was experienced out there. On a positivity aspect of it, I noticed that there were like junior constables, to use Utah's terminology, that they would assign, I think, homeless people to like a 3-block radius where that they would be in charge of cleaning up the area. They dispense first aid supplies if necessary. You know, they'd have a sharps container, but essentially maintaining a clean aspect to the city. And then to move on to another point, I was fortunate to get a good idea from a resident who feels that there are not enough signs in the city that are directing to positive things that the city has to offer. One thing I just discovered on my own was the youth corps that sits up on the side of the hill. I've been driving 89 regular every Wednesday for the past 3 years, and I just had to discover it on my own. And with our nation's problem with youth suicide and everything, I think this is definitely a sign that would have a priority, because it allows the youth to work to things that are majorly positive, kind of like, you know, FDR, you know, had the major things that he did. So the signs on that, you know, recognizing that there are homeless people out there that are, are clean and can have responsible positions. We have multiple areas in the city that are vacant. I don't think we have enough shared garden spaces. And then also, I think I got about 30 seconds left.
Yep, go ahead and finish up.
There was an action by, I think it was a European country, that their incentive was to give the city residents 3 chickens. Anybody who signed up for it got 3 free chickens. And, you know, in today's day and age of, egg prices and everything, they found that just doing that stimulated the economy to such a large degree that it was just really remarkable. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for being with us. Anyone else? Now's your time to come forward. Seeing none, we will end public comments and go to consent items. Commissioners, that would be agenda items F1 through 12. Let's start with request for approval of warrants 7486 through 7537 and number 474980 through 475146 and number 250 in the amount of $2,092,032.43. 2, request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $136,011.09. And we'll now go to a summary of warrants and purchase orders by Mr. Ricky Hatch. Ricky?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We issued 12 purchase orders this week for $136,000. Just over a third of that amount, or $49,000, is for the library, which was mostly for a vehicle replacement, but also went towards outreach program materials as well as processing supplies. 23%, or $32,000, was for the jail to purchase case management inventory software. We had 2 items at $18,000, or 13% of the total. The health department will go towards purchasing vaccines, and then the IT department will pay for a security training subscription. Then we had 2 items at $10,000, or 7% each. Roads for equipment rental, and then the transfer station for fuel and some service to the scale. As far as warrants, we issued 220 checks this week for $2.1 million. Almost half that amount, $965,000, was employee medical insurance. And then 22%, or $463,000, was for the transfer station, which was almost exclusively disposal fees, but included some building and equipment maintenance as well.
Thank you, Ricky. Questions for Mr. Hatch? Seeing none. Let's go to the rest of the consent items. Request number 4, F4 would be request for approval of ACH payments to U.S. Bank in the amount of $264,816.43. 5, request for approval of ACH payments to Zions Bank in the amount of $48,498.56. 6, request for approval of minutes for the meeting held on March 7th, 2023. 7, request for approval of new business licenses. 8, request from the Weber County Division of Solid Waste Management for approval to surplus heavy equipment. 9, request for approval of change order number 1 to the contract by and between Weber County and Leon Pultzen Construction Company on the 7500 West Improvement Project. 10, request for approval to sell surplus property identified as part of parcel 179216. 11, request for approval of a memorandum of understanding with Ogden City for a donation of $200,000 for the Ogden Canyon Trail Project. And 12, request for approval of renewal of an agreement by and between Weber County and North Ogden City for services provided by the Weber County Surveyor's Office. Those are the consent items, Commissioners. Any questions, comments on any of those items?
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I would like to, I don't know that I'm opposed to item 11, which is the understanding with Ogden City for the donation of $200,000 for the Ogden Trail Project, but I would like them to seriously consider how they can route that trail so it doesn't impact the citizens in that canyon to that same to the level to the area where the rail trail where they own that property. There's that as you know, there's that pipeline that's going to be redone. The state legislature appropriated funds to do that 36-inch pipeline, and we just need to find a way to say yes so that that pipeline does not bother any of the people in the canyon. And I would like them to, even though it's harder, do the right thing and so that it doesn't impact those people. And I think it would be for a better experience for people over the next many decades, if not century, to enjoy that canyon where they're not walking up people's driveways. So that would be my comment on that. If that could be recorded, Craig, and posted, and those who would, Sean, when that money goes over there, that maybe they give serious, I think I want to word that, serious consideration, even though they've got the old rail right-of-way, to see how they can move that out of people's driveways.
Good point. I think that's actually been discussed with Ogden City on some of our previous meetings. I think when we agreed to this last year, I believe, Sean, that this sum was agreed to. And this is a matching $200,000 along with Ogden City and Trails Foundation putting in an equal amount. Is that, am I corrected now? Yes. Okay. So, but I agree with your comments, Commissioner Harvey. Commissioner Bolos, anything?
None for me.
Okay. With that, I would look for any additional comments on any of the consent items that have been discussed. If not, I'd look for a motion for consent items on the agenda, F1 through 12.
Move to approve items F1 through 12, the consent items.
Thank you. And we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Consent items are approved as read. Let's go to action items. G1, request from the Recreation, Arts, Museum, and Parks Board for the approval of 2023 ramp grant recommendation. And we have with us Lacey and Richards and Shelley. Who's going to present this? This was the issue that Mayor Allen was, I think, so eloquent on expressing his support for. So, Shelley, Lacey.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank
Good
you
morning.
for
Welcome.
giving us this time today. First of all, I want to echo Mayor Allen's words. This ramp committee puts their heart and soul into this, and they take very seriously where this ramp tax grant goes. One of our committees was here until 8 o'clock on their day, so they were here for 11 hours making those decisions. And some of them take it very personally, and it's a hard job, and it's a non-paying job, and they seem to enjoy it. They keep coming back for more. So I want to make sure that we definitely appreciate the service that they are giving to Weber County and to RAMP. I've got it pulled up on the board, the RAMP funding outline. This year we started with $6.5 million, which is a good amount. When RAMP started almost 20 years ago, we thought we'd have $3 million yearly. So the fact that it keeps increasing is incredible. And when you take into consideration that the majority of the grants that RAMP funds tries to have a 50% match, you could double that amount going out into the community. And that's a good thing for Weber County. So we divide that $6.5 million into three with 2.166666 going for the majors, and then for the arts and museums and rec and parks, they each get that same amount, but they add that together first and then take out the municipality grants and the summer Saturdays, and then they divide that out again, and that's where we come up with the amount of almost $2 million per committee. You can see that with the major funds this time we had an additional $3.3 million to add to that for a total of $5.4, which is great, except for that we had more than 10 million in requests. So it still makes it a really hard job because we get some amazing applications for amazing projects, and the board has to decide where that's going to go. And then in the arts and museums, we had over 3 million in requests, and rec and parks, we had almost 3 million in requests, and again, we had amazing applications. And like I said, they were here till late making those decisions, but they did their best, and we bring that before you today for your approval, and Lacey's going to go over some of that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Lacey, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Shelley, and thank you, Stacy. They both do such a wonderful job of running this program. I'd like to recognize my board members. This is a volunteer position. Most of the time it's a fun position, not always, but these are people who really take seriously the charge to administer these funds and make a recommendation to you. Two of the board members are here today. We've got Kevin Burns, who chairs our Park and Rec Committee, and then also Sherry Bingham, who serves on our Arts and Museums and Advisory Committees. So I'd like to thank them for being here today. Just to review, as Shelley mentioned, we did have a lot of requests this year. We had funding available to fund only about 53% of the funds that were requested in the major category. In arts and museums, we had funds available for 66% of what was requested and for 70% of what was requested in Parks and Rec. I'd also like to recognize the cities, the nonprofits, the different entities who apply for RAMP funding, who partner with us and with you in getting these funds out in the community where they make a difference for every one of our residents. When I go around Weber County, you know, when I take my kids to a softball game or when they were younger to a playground, when we go out and enjoy the different events and programming that are offered in the county, it makes me very proud to be a Weber County resident and to recognize the good that these dollars are doing in our community. So I would like to encourage everyone to remember that RAMP is going to be on the ballot in 2024, that this is an opportunity for all of us to share with our friends and neighbors how much good this is doing in our community, to bring recreation, arts, museums, and parks to everyone who lives here in Weber County. And with that, I would like to respectfully request your consideration of the recommendations for funding that the board has submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay right there a second. I think you might have some questions. So the first question I have, and as Mayor Allen said, he's very appreciative of these funds because he doesn't have to raise property tax. And I think there are probably people in the public that don't understand where these funds actually derive, where they come from. Can you tell people where, because that will be on the ballot, and
Yes.
and a lot of people look at one thing, and that's their property tax, And we want to make it very clear that this is not a property tax revenue enhancement.
Yes, that's correct. So the ramp funds are derived from a fraction of a percentage in the sales tax that's collected. And one of the nice things about that is not only do these amenities and events throughout our community bring people in to spend dollars here with Weber County businesses that benefits all of us, when people come here and spend money, it also is an opportunity to give back into that programming and those future amenities as well.
Yeah, so being the sales tax commissioners, that means the way I've understood sales tax in the state, a lot of that is paid by out-of-staters, not necessarily paid by people that live and work in this community. So that's a direct benefit to our citizens, being paid by other people coming in and visiting us, taking advantage of our restaurants, et cetera. So,
Yes.
questions, commissioners?
I would ask for one more clarification just for the public, Lacey. And Shelley talked about the savings from prior years.
Yes.
So will you just talk for a minute about why there's money left over and why it wasn't spent, or was it spent, and just
Sure.
explain that?
Yeah, so there are two main reasons that that fund was available. One of them is that the ramp funding, we have to know how much we can spend before sales tax has been collected for the entire year. So part of that has to do with the county does a great job of estimating conservatively so that we don't spend money that we don't have. So that's one of the reasons. And then probably one that is more interesting to people is that once in a while someone will get awarded funding for a project and that project will come in under budget. We only pay for what actually gets done and is a benefit to the community. So if that comes in under budget, they return the excess funds. Occasionally someone will bid out for a project and, for example, an event that got rained out didn't happen. They'll return that funding that wasn't spent, and so that has collected over the past several years, and that made up that lump sum that was added to this year's pot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Commissioner Harvey?
My comment just had to do with the music video that was submitted by Tom Hansen in the Washington Terrace. But I was hoping we got to see that this morning, and I guess we're not
Was
going to.
that part of the application?
That's what I understand.
I've heard it exists. I've not been privileged to see it yet.
I don't know if we can make a decision until we see that.
I would like to see that.
Yeah. Well, maybe Mr. Hanson give you a private viewing one of these days.
I don't need a private Antonova.
All right. Any additional comments or questions, commissioners?
So one more comment that I would make is
Go ahead.
that this year it was fantastic that we had so many great applications. Obviously, we were not able to fund all of them, and we've reached out individually to the applicants and encouraged them to come back and apply again. But I'd just like to reiterate that if you had a fantastic application this year, please bring it back, because that's great to get those out into the community. And no, it didn't mean it was a bad project. It meant that we had an excess of great projects and a limit on funding.
Good.
That's a great point, if I might add.
Go ahead.
That there were so many that were not funded, and I appreciate the board's efforts in sorting through that, and what a hard job that is. I'm glad it's not mine, but at the same time, I've worked with liaisons in my former role, and they come back and help the entities understand what they need to improve if there need to be improvements made to make those successful applications. And so that's really appreciated, because it's not a failure. It's just an opportunity to go back and maybe rethink some things so that you can be successful the next time. And hopefully there will be, funding for a lot of those that were not funded this year. But thank you so much to those who are here, and please pass it along to all of them. I know that, there are a lot of dedicated and donated hours into this, so we owe it to the ramp board for that.
Great point. And I would just say, Lacey, this program works because of your leadership and Kevin's leadership and that committee you have. And of course, Shelley, our internal staff people. It works because you take the time to make sure that those funds, which are substantial, nothing to, take lightly, those projects are looked at very diligently, and the funds are given in areas that most needed and equitably. You could see that Washington Terrace, a small town, received a good share of those funds. So it's your time commitment and really your ability to look through those applications that make this successful for Weber County. And I think that's the reason that the voters out there will pass this again in 2024. So
Thank you, Commissioner Farrar. And on behalf of the board, all of us feel that this is a privilege to be able to serve in this volunteer capacity, so thank you for allowing us to serve.
Thank you. All right, Commissioners, we're back to our agenda item, which is the request from the Rex Arts, Museum, and Parks Board for approval of the 2023 ramp grant. Recommendations is presented by Lacey Richards and Shelley Hallisey.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Lacey, Kevin, thanks for being with us and your committee. Let's now go to our next action item, which is a request for approval of resolutions 22-2023 of the County Commissioners of Weber County, appointing a member to the Weber County Veterans Advisory Committee. Christy Bingham, you're up.
Good morning.
See you, Mayor.
I have a resolution in front of you to approve the reappointment of Sherry Morale to the Weber County Veterans Advisory Committee, also known as Sarge Morale. Her term ended at the end of 2022, and she is happy and excited to be reappointed and serve another 2 years.
Okay, and she's been on there in the past.
She has. She was first appointed back in 2018. So
Wow.
she loves this committee and wants to be a part of it.
Great committee, and I think she's a great recommendation.
Yeah.
Comments, Commissioners?
None for me. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 22-2023, appointing Sherry Morale to the Veterans Advisory Committee.
Second with comment?
Go ahead.
She does such a wonderful job, and she's delightful. What a great gal.
Yep.
She does it with just a happy heart, and
She
without
volunteers.
reservation, I can second that motion.
Thank you.
And we have a second and a motion. Roll call vote. Mr.
Roll
Brown?
call vote for resolution 22-2023. Commissioner Bolos,
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey,
Aye.
Chair Farrar.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thanks, Christy. Let's now go to our next agenda item. Request for approval of Resolution 23-2023 of the County Commissioners of Weber County approving the 2022 Municipal Wastewater Planning Program Annual Report. Mr. Chad Meyerhofer, welcome.
Commissioners. What you have before you is the Municipal Wastewater Planning Program Annual Report for 2022. This gives us an opportunity to report back to the state on some of the things financially that we have going on with our sewer, as well as any new connections, a new sewer line that's come in, as well as any sewer overflows that may have happened or backups into basements. And with our system being fairly new and in good condition, we haven't really had any problems with it, so everything's pretty good on it. But we are increasing with that. I mean, we're up to about 12 miles of sewer line now, so it's increasing every year. So if you have any questions for me, if not.
Questions for Mr. Meyerhofer?
None for me.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, if you're ready to receive it.
I am.
That we approve Resolution 23-2023. It's presented by Mr. Meyerhofer this morning.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Roll call vote. Greg?
Roll call vote for resolution 23-2023. Commissioner Bolos,
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Chair Farrar.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Chad. Now let's go to the next agenda item, request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and the Rock Hard Excavating LLC to run a sewer line from Hazy Acres Sewer Lift Station to the sewer line in Taylor Landing. Chad, you're back up.
Yeah, Commissioners, and really excited for this one because what this is going to help us do is get rid of one of our lift stations out there, so a little less problems that we'll have to deal with. Been a little bit rough getting a contractor to get us a bid on this, but we've got one now, and this contract would be for Rock Hard to do that work. We're looking, don't know exactly a time frame to get started. The groundwater out there is pretty high right now, so as soon as we can get the groundwater down, I think we'll get going on this project. So just looking at getting this contract approved so we can be ready to go for when we can do it. So.
Great. Questions for Mr. Meyerhofer?
I'm glad to know that Rock Hard bid. They do a great job. They're a great contractor, so this will be done well as well.
Yep.
So, very good. With that, Mr. Chair, if you're ready to receive,
I am.
I'll make that motion. We approve item 4 on our agenda today as presented by Mr. Meyerhofer.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Chad.
Commissioners.
Let's now go to our next agenda item, which is a request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and the American chariot racing for the 2023 World Chariot Races to be held at the Golden Spike Center. Mr. Duncan Olson.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
So, you have before you the contract between us and World Chariots, essentially. Over the last several years, we've peeled back our sponsorship, so this is the least, the smallest sponsorship that we've given the World's Chariot Finals. We've kind of put it back on them to go and get sponsors and pay for their stalls, and it's something that they haven't had to do for a long time. And so it's really trade for sponsorship in the track. But we're excited to have them. They are not what they once were, but we're still going to have some fun the next 2 weekends.
Good. Okay.
This is what you remember as the World Chariot Races.
Mm-hmm.
So,
2-week event,
Yeah, 2 weekends. Yep.
2 weekends. Great. Commissioner Harvey, this is in your portfolio. Comments, questions? or-
no, good job on continuing to make those steps incrementally each year. So with that, Mr. Chair, again, I'll make a motion that we approve this contract between Weber County and American Chariot Racing for the 2023 Worlds. That's all. I mean, World Chariot, Cutter and Chariot Racing.
Great, I can understand.
Okay, got it.
And I may even go out there myself and check it out. Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you for that motion.
Second?
And we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thanks,
Thank you.
Duncan. Let's now go to our next agenda item, which is request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and the Pictometry International Corporation, DBA Eagle View, for aerial photography to assist Weber County in the 5-year review of physical characteristics required under Utah law. John Ulibarri is not here, but his very capable staff is. Go ahead.
Hello, Commissioners. So what you have in front of us is the contract that allows us to do oblique imagery, so we can do measurements on the imagery that allows us to do our reappraisal that is state mandated by law. So we're just hoping that you'll approve it. So it saves us time, so we don't have to do physical inspections at every property in the county. So it's a time saver to have this imagery.
Okay, questions?
Awesome.
So I have a question. So you said that this allows you to do the measurement, so you could figure with this, do the square footage assessment?
Yeah, we do measurements. So it's reappraisable, so we already have somebody done a physical inspection, but we
Yeah.
review, so if something looks different than what we have on file, then we can do measurements on this imagery because it gives us an oblique imagery.
Great, okay. Thank you for that. Additional questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the contract by and between Weber County and Pictometry International Corp., DBA Eagle View, for aerial photography.
Thank
Second.
you. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. We'll now go to our next agenda item, request for approval of memorandum of understanding by and between Weber County and Ogden City for the Weber County Assessor's Office to classify building permits received from Ogden City as protected records under GRAMA. So can you explain that to us?
Yeah, it's actually building plans. Yeah, and so the memorandum of understanding is actually, so we don't have to grant a request every time we need to see a building plan. There's some properties we're not allowed to get on because they're gated and they don't let us in, but we still have to assess them. So we've been having to GRAMA request them from Ogden City, so this is a memorandum that just allows us to get them with a request through the, not having to do a GRAMA on everyone. We can actually just talk to their plans department and they'll send them to us. So
Makes a lot of sense. I'm assuming Ogden City's agreed to this?
they're the ones that wrote it up, and so, yeah, they're the ones, their attorney worked with our attorney to make it be correct, so.
Good.
That's great.
Seems like a good step forward. Comments, questions, Commissioners? I'd look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding by and between Weber County and Ogden City for the Weber County Assessor's Office to classify
Thank you for that
building
motion.
permits, sorry.
Second.
I paused because you made a correction.
Yeah, building
Okay.
plans.
Building plans.
Building plans. Got it.
Second.
We still have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Commissioners, now we're scheduled for a public hearing, so I'd look for a motion to adjourn the public meeting and convene a public hearing as shown on our agenda this morning.
So move.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're now in a public hearing, and this public hearing is to consider and/or take action on a requested rezone, including a rezoning ordinance and zoning development agreement contract to rezone property from A1 to RE15 on approximately 14.93 acres located at approximately 4175 West, 1400 South, ZMA 2022-05. Mr. Steve Burton, you're up.
Yes, that was quite the title of an agenda item. Sometimes we have to do that, I guess. Commissioners, I'm sharing my PowerPoint. I don't know if you can see that on your screens. I'm sharing that on Zoom.
There you go.
Awesome. Perfect. I've got about 10 slides. It shouldn't take me more than 10 minutes. I'll go over these briefly, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any at any point. As was mentioned, this is a rezone application. This is actually the last step in the rezone application. The file it's ZMA 2022-05. The request is on 14.93 acres to amend the zoning from A1 to the zone known as RE15. Let's see here. On this slide, I just wanted to show you the location to make sure you were familiar with the location. We're right off of 1400 South and about 4100 West. You can see 4300 is just right over here. So there's the project location. I wanted to also clearly show you what was being requested. On the left, it shows the current zoning map. On the right, it shows the proposed zoning map to the RE15 zone. RE15, just briefly, I guess the difference from A1 to RE15, A1 allows agriculture. It also allows a residence on 40,000 square feet and 150 feet of frontage. The proposal for RE15 would be one lot per every 15,000 square feet. And the frontages will vary in widths, but we're looking at frontages from about 70 feet to about 150 feet. And I'll get more into the way that development will look here just briefly. On this slide, I wanted to point out something that is important. When a rezone application is submitted as staff, we look at the general plan for guidance. Now, fortunately for us, we just adopted a general plan back in August to refer to. So what I've shown you here is just a few things from the general plan that I'll point out. One of them is the future land use map on the left shows this as an area of having a possibility of medium density residential. When we look at the general plan, it specifies medium density residential as around 15,000 square foot lots. As a possibility in the yellow area. The other part of the general plan I want to point out is it talks about when a landowner comes in and is requesting more development rights, which would be the case here. There would be significantly more residential development rights if a rezone were approved. We feel that it's important that that developer proposes some type of public investment, something that will be good for the neighborhood and the area in general. And a few of the things that we feel this development has proposed after meeting with us and with the Planning Commission is they are proposing public street and public trail connectivity in locations where we've asked them, where we've asked the developer to show them. I'll get into that in a little bit here in just a minute. The other thing that they are proposing is a contribution to open space in the area. They're proposing to offer a $2,000 per lot donation to the West Weber Parks District as a contribution to open space, which the general plan also talks about. I felt that it might be helpful to show you just the existing conditions. There's not much going on with the property right now. You can see on the right it has been farmed. There's also some ditches and some outbuildings on there as well. This slide is showing you the proposed layout of this subdivision. This is the layout that was reviewed with the Planning Commission back in February. It's proposed to have 37 lots, and the lot sizes range. Technically, the average lot size in this case would be about 13,000 square feet. Now, you might be thinking the proposed zone is 15,000. The reason they're proposing 13, and the reason that I believe the Planning Commission forwarded a positive recommendation was because they're not getting any more lots than they could get under the RE15 zone. If you took their acreage and figured out what their square footage was and divided that by 15,000 square feet, you could actually get about 40 lots, and they're proposing 37 at this time. One thing I'll point out is they are providing a trail. They're agreeing to provide a 10-foot wide trail. Now, north, sorry, I should have pointed this out earlier. North is to the left of the screen here. They're proposing to provide a 10-foot trail that goes through 1600 South. They're also proposing to have curb, gutter, and sidewalk on all the other streets in the subdivision, and there will also be street trees in the park strips. Just to give you an idea of what RE15 zone development standards are, they're pretty basic, pretty normal standards. So typically you've got a front yard setback of 30 feet, a rear yard of 30 feet as well. Normally the RE15 zone requires a side yard setback of 10 feet on one side, and between the two sides it has to add up to be 24. Now, in this case, where there are some lots that are narrower, the developer has requested through a development agreement to be allowed an 8-foot side yard setback to address some of those narrower lots. And we've written that into a development agreement that's prepared for you if you decide to take action on that today. Dwelling height is in RE15 is 35 feet, and accessory building height is 35 feet, and the developer isn't proposing anything different from that. I want to point out and let you know that the Planning Commission in February of this year, they unanimously forwarded a positive recommendation to you based on the developer agreeing to certain things in a development agreement. I've got those on the screen here, what the Planning Commission would like the developer to have in that development agreement. And we have prepared that with the developer, and there's a mutual agreement to these things. I'll just briefly go over them. One of them is that they provide that donation that they told us they would to the Parks District. We'll expect that to be done as a subdivision plat is submitted. The development agreement would prohibit owners in these future lots from protesting annexation into, I should have written, into a city in the future. The development agreement will also prohibit land uses that require 1/2 acre of property or more. RE15, the reason we have that in there is because RE15 does allow for things like chickens and goats, and we don't necessarily, and the developer also agreed that it doesn't necessarily fit with this type of subdivision, so they've agreed to restrict those uses. The development agreement will require that trail along the north side of 1600 that we looked at, and it will also allow that reduced side yard setback that we talked about. Some other things in development agreements, this isn't from the Planning Commission, this is just more of staff. The development agreement will lock in that concept plan that we looked at, so that when the developer comes into plat, we'll expect them to plat this. The development also gives the agreement also would give the developer 10 years to complete the project. One thing I want to point out with this image really quick, you'll notice that there are no roads that currently connect to the project east and west. It will just be off of 1400 South. As staff and the Planning Commission looked at it, we didn't require the developer to build any streets on adjacent properties. When they do come in to subdivide, they will only be able to plat 30 lots because our code says you can only plat 30 off of a single access. But that is something that you may want to consider. We just, as staff and Planning Commission, didn't feel it was necessary at this time to require them to build roads on other properties. Okay, now I'm going to get into some considerations.
Steve, will you go back 2 slides for me real quick?
Sure. 2 slides?
Right there. Right there. You said 8 feet on each side, not 8 feet on, so 8 feet on each side, so that's a total of 16. So you're taking that from 24 down to 16.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
I will mention, one of the reasons that, as staff, we were generally comfortable with that reduction is because there's an ordinance in process right now that would allow, I believe it actually allow 15 feet in a zone similar to this. We're realizing that RE15, those side yard setbacks are a little restrictive on narrower lots, but definitely something to consider.
You know, I don't know that I'd buy a house that couldn't put a trailer on the side of it with all the code restrictions nowadays. I'd want to be able to park my trailer, and 8 foot doesn't do it. You know, so.
Another thing to consider too is that with the larger side setbacks, you would have smaller homes on those narrower lots. So I think that might be part of what the Planning Commission is after.
Put a bigger home on a smaller lot.
Yeah, you can put a bigger home on a smaller lot with an 8-foot side setback.
I'm sorry, and I'll wait till we get into 4 or 5 in this thing to ask any more questions, Steve. Thanks.
Sure. Some of the considerations that we make as staff and the Planning Commission made as well, you're welcome to consider them, are is the proposal going to be compatible with the surrounding land uses, and will there be any detriment to health, safety, and welfare in the area as a result of this type of development? You can also consider the general plan. We always recommend considering that if the proposal contributes to the general plan, if it aligns with the goals and policies of the general plan. Another thing you consider is if the timing is right for this type of development. In making those considerations, there are several actions you can take, as you're well aware. One of the actions you could take would be to approve the proposal based on objective findings, like it complies with the general plan. You could also deny the proposal if you felt, if you had some reason that you felt that it should be denied. A common reason that rezones may be denied are the timing just isn't right, or that the development doesn't fit into the surrounding area. You could also table the decision and ask us for further clarification. Now, I will offer you the, if you're looking for it, I'll offer you a staff recommendation, which is just to accept the Planning Commission recommendation based on the development agreement that we've prepared and based on the ordinance that we've prepared. That captures all of the conditions of the Planning Commission that the developers agreed to, and we propose that you base that off of the proposal contributes to aspects of the general plan, and it also is not detrimental to the surrounding area. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions, Commissioners?
Not at this time. Like I say, I'll wait.
So just to make sure, so this fits with the general plan in terms of what's been asked for here, and it's also been approved by the Planning Commission in the past period of time.
That's correct. And one of the findings of the Planning Commission was that the proposal met the general plan.
Right. Okay. Any additional questions or comments to Steve? Okay, seeing none, let's go to public comments. Now's your time if you'd like to come up and make a comment about this particular hearing. Now's the time to do it.
Abe Bartson. The $2,000 per plot donation is great. I think what would be more important, especially there was one property on there that backed up against 3 other properties. I think a better solution is drop your property zone to 36 and have an internal park in the area. You know, probably going to be some children there, and to have a locally accessible park, I think would be great. And then obviously we can't choose our neighbors, so all those 3 properties on the one frontage would look onto a park instead of a potentially negative neighbor. The animal restriction, you know, it's country out there. I mean, I think that's not wise. And then also the street 30 rule, I mean, obviously that's for safety. I mean, there has to be some other access, whether it be an emergency access road that's locked and is not, you know, public use or whatever. I mean, there needs to be some other egress. yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Like to come forward? Now's your time. Seeing none, Commissioners, I would look for a motion to adjourn the public hearing and reconvene as a public meeting.
So move.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Let's go to action on H2, which is approval of the rezone, including rezoning ordinance 2023-06 and zoning development agreement contract to rezone property from A1 to RE15 on approximately 14.93 acres. Questions or comments, Commissioners?
No, go ahead, I can wait.
I don't have any.
Shouldn't have it.
No, so in reference to you, Abe, the reason that the applicant puts $2,000 per lot into the park district, that contributes to the park district. The park, combining lots in this subdivision does not fit the park district's plan, so that wouldn't work. So that comment is erroneous on that. As far as the narrowness and the chicken deal goes, when you're making smaller lots, that also fits with me. My problem is that is the 8 foot. But Steve, you said you may want to come to the mic so that it can be recorded. You said that there's a ordinance being drafted or being crafted that's going to speak to this more clearly. I think for me, once that ordinance is in place, I'd be more likely to do this, but I don't want to get this out in front of it. There are too many other things that could happen, and I don't want to set a precedence. So for me, I've got to be a no until this is too early. That ordinance needs to be in place, and so we need to have that done first. It's not. I'd like to support the Planning Commission, and I certainly want to support staff and the recommendation. But I don't like it that it's here before the regular ordinance is in place to do these little items here.
I appreciate that guidance.
That's my comment.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so I'd entertain a motion on H2 for the public approval.
I do have one question. What's the sorry. What's the status of the revision of that ordinance?
I don't actually know. Well, Charlie does.
So the ordinance has been in work session with the Planning Commission for a couple of different meetings. Actually, it's been closer to 3 different meetings. I think we're getting close. We'll probably have something for them to act on in their April meeting, and then have something to you guys by the end of April. It's challenging because we got both planning commissions that the ordinance affects. It's more than just the 15,000 square foot lot zone. It goes into details in other sections. So we have to work with both planning commissions to get something done.
Sure. Thank you.
That's the problem with having 2 planning commissions. I hate to hold these guys up. That's what makes government slow. But on the flip side of this, if something comes up here and the planning commission misses or they wanted to add something here, I think for me, it's prudent to just wait. If there's a way to accelerate that so we can move this forward quicker, I would love to see that.
I agree, Jim. And I'd be happy to consider tabling this for that reason. It sounds like it's nearing the end of the process. But I just want to make a note that I don't agree with your comment that you would never buy a house with an 8-foot setback, because it's not about what each of us would want individually. And
That's
so
fair. I take that.
I think that it's important that the ordinances reflect the ability for different people to buy different properties. So I'm not in disagreement with the 8-foot setback, but I think I agree with you that we should wait until that's in code.
And I appreciate that correction. I thank you. I agree with that. I understand that.
Okay, so the question is the 8-foot setback that you have?
No, the
You're not-
question-
Because, again, the 8-foot setbacks, when we look at a 15,000 square foot lot, as we've already agreed to in the general plan, conform to, and as the planning commission has noted, that conforms to no reason to have a 15 or 20-foot setback on a 15,000 square foot lot, because that then takes your driveway another area out. The setback is just for, you can't have, again, can't have a building or improvements on that. So it allows you to have a place to park a trailer. So I guess I don't understand what the objection is to the 8-foot.
I can come off of that comment on the 8-foot setback based on what's been said. My problem is getting out ahead of the planning commission on the ordinance.
Yeah, Commissioner Chair, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I may be able to give some words that provide a sense of comfort. The new general plan has a lot of changes, prescribes a lot of changes to our existing ordinances. It's going to take years to get all of them done. In the meantime, as rezones come in, this is your chance to look at things with a legislative hat at a very broad perspective and allow things to move through the process with development agreements that alter the standards that are adopted in code to speak more to that general plan. So right now what I'm suggesting, and if you guys are comfortable with it, if you were to move this on for approval, you'll actually be closer to implementing the objectives of the plan than you would be if it was approved, for example, under the RE15 zone as it's written. And so...
Say that again.
We're going to have...
Be closer to the objectives of the plan?
Yeah, it'll be closer to what the plan is calling for if you were to approve it with the development agreement. And we've got 5 or 6 other rezone applications coming through the process right now. We're doing the same thing. We're working with them with a development agreement to write the specific standards for those subdivisions that speak to the intent of the general plan, because you don't have an ordinance right now that speaks to that intent. We're still trying to simultaneously get that ordinance done so that we're not doing this all the time. But most of these folks have been in process for about 6 months or so.
Yeah, and I agree with Charlie on that. I think this, if it's in the development, and we've done this before, that the development agreement is really the document that binds us and I think gives us substantiation for when the general plan or the ordinance comes before us, substantiation to do that. But
Chair Farrar, may I add something else? And I don't know the answer to this, but maybe Charlie or Steve could elaborate. With the development agreement, getting out ahead of this before the actual zone change or the ordinance comes through, I don't know what the impact will be on the $2,000 per lot going towards the park district and then also the trail system. I don't know if the new ordinance would cover that.
Right.
That's a good point.
Which I like the $2,000 commitment now.
Hmm?
Are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-06.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. I'll second that. That's a roll call vote.
Roll call vote for ordinance 2023-06. Commissioner Bolos?
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey?
Nay?
Chair Farrar?
Aye. Okay, that passes. With that, we'd go to commissioner comments.
Oh, he left. I wanted to recognize Konstantinos Bolos, the husband to Commissioner Bolos, who was in the audience earlier, and
He's left.
I tried to get to that, and then I thought, oh, I'll wait till Commissioner comments.
I'll tell him that, Jim.
Is that your comment?
That was my comment.
Okay. Commissioner Bolos.
Yeah, I do have one comment.
Go ahead.
This is an experience from a couple weeks ago, but the planning department invited me to one of their staff meetings to just kind of introduce me to everyone. And part of their staff meeting was planning for a statewide conference that's going to be held here in the county in the fall. And it was really cool to listen to the excitement as they were just brainstorming ideas of what they could show everyone who comes to Weber County about how cool we are here. And I mean, they won't be able to do all the stuff, but it was pretty neat to see their excitement about what they wanted to show off when the state came and gathered here. So
Awesome.
They're proud of where they live, and we all should be.
I know
I
I
should
am.
say live and work. There are those who don't live here.
Good. Appreciate that. Anything else? Look for a final motion.
So move.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much for being here.